Hello and welcome back to the channel, or welcome. Today we are doing something, not totally different out of the realms of what I usually do on a Thursday. We're still going to be doing book reviews, but these aren't going to be as necessarily in depth, mostly because I have about 5 things to go over, because it's the little graphic novel, comic book, manga haul thing, whatever you want to call it, all that jazz. So, zone out for a second there. We have the 4 books that I said I was going to be reading, plus one little bonus extra. Why don't we start with that? Oh, also, before we get started, I'm not going to be reading authors because for the most part we've got... Actually, for the most part? Yeah, for the most part we've got multiple authors. So I'm going to put them on the screen. I probably will mention those books with single authors. I might end up bringing them up, but it is what it is. But for all of them, I'll put them here just because it's a little bit easier. Takes a little bit out of my time currently and just adds time for me later. And if that ain't the way I tend to live my life, future me's problem, not now me's problem. I'm surprised I got that sentence out in one go. Anyway, let's get on to it. So first up, we have a little bonus one, which I didn't actually mention when I was reading it before. Mostly because I just found it when I was meant to be doing research in the library. So we have the Sonic the Hedgehog 30th anniversary celebration. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say that I am the #1 Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I just think he's neat. I think he's fun. I played the games when I was a kid. I am one of 5 people that really enjoyed that film. The one that came out, I was going to say last year. That was 2 years ago now, because that came out just before the pandemic, and I went to see it on my own on Valentine's Day, because... Yeah. Let's not think about it, but point is, I can't compare this to any other Sonic media particularly. It's not something that I am in depth with, but that being said, I thought it was a lot of fun. From anything that I've seen in terms of little clips from the animated series, I think it must be kind of recent, but I'm not 100% sure about that. It seems to have that kind of vibe to it. Like, it's fun, it's cheeky, listen, I'm not going to tell you that it's the new groundbreaking piece of media, but it is a lot of fun. It's kind of silly, and who doesn't want just a little bit of cheeky fun every now and again, right? And it, was a good little procrastination tool for me when I was meant to be doing something else. Also, like I said, these aren't going to be long reviews. I'm not going in depth. I might go in depth a bit more with some than others, so if I feel like I'm rushing through this, that's not the case. I just don't want to keep you here for hours and hours. Honestly, if you like Sonic in any way, if you think he's a fun character, or like if you want to get a little bit more of the other characters in there, like I remember I played Sonic Heroes ridiculously when I was a kid, and there's a couple of the other characters in there that I recognised, so it was a bit of fun. I can recommend that to you if you like Sonic at all, or if you like the... Is it McElroy or McElroy brothers? Because they are writers on this, so I don't really know much of their content. Again, the sort of thing that I've seen clips of rather than ever being invested in their content, but I'm sure that their style peeks throughout the book if that's the sort of thing you like, so there you go. Next up, we have One Punch Man, Volume 1. This is probably the one I was looking forward to the most, mostly because I'd heard about, well, obviously I'd heard about One Punch Man just generally because I've got nerdy friends, but it's the sort of thing where I knew the premise of it, or like the most basic premise of it, of him training so hard and becoming so strong and powerful, which is why he's like bold and whatever, but I didn't know much outside of that, and it's just kind of silly. I didn't know. I know how this is about to sound, given that I've just said he became so powerful, he became a shiny little bald man. But I didn't know how serious or ridiculous it was. It's pure ridiculousness. And yet, not and yet, I don't know what I'm talking about. I just had a lot of fun with it. Yeah, even if I didn't know what I was expecting, I definitely really enjoyed it. Also, I was talking with my brother, who I know is a big fan of this series, and he confirmed to me that the original webcomic that has since been adapted into the manga, the the quality of art, and look, it's going to sound rude until I show you. So here is the one of the villains in the manga. Here that villain is in the original webcomic. I am obsessed. I think it's so funny. Just that pure difference. And the thing is, all the writing is... I don't know if it's exactly the same. There's probably some editing process that's gone through. But the writing is effectively the same. The writer of webcomic to manga. No changes there. But... obviously we got a new artist, and I just think that's wonderful. Also, the expressions on... why can't I remember his name now? I know it begins with an S. Look, on One Punch Man's face, his little expressions on his little bald head make me very happy. I just think he's wonderful. Also, it's like surprisingly expressive given how simple his expressions are. Like, there isn't... it's not incredibly detailed. Like, later we're going to be talking about Junji Ito, which is... sometimes I wish there was less detail in that, but, you know, the expressions in Yusuke Murata's art... well, not Yusuke Murata's art, but I don't know the artist for that, and we'll put it here. In his artist's work, it's so simple, because it's just like a little round Eggman, but he's so emotive, and I think that's wonderful. And there are more at the library, but they're like, I found volume 1, and then the only other ones that are there at the minute at least are like volume 23 and 27 or something like that. But I do know that my brother has more, so I probably will end up borrowing some from him in the future, because I thought it was wonderful. And if it's the sort of thing you've ever been curious about, like me, where you go, oh, maybe I could enjoy it, maybe I wouldn't, who knows, definitely give it a go. There's very little to lose. Like, maybe some time, oh no. And the thing is, you get through each chapter relatively quickly, because it's all very fast paced. Give it a go. Honestly, well worth it. Next up, we have my brain falling out, even though I'm looking at the page where all of my stuff is written. Next up, we have Sleeping Beauties Volume 1. I don't know how invested I am in this. I thought it was interesting. The storytelling is wonderful. I mean, it's Stephen King. I was going to assume the storytelling itself was going to be good. Sort of the reason that he's had a chokehold on the horror genre for as long as he has. But finding the story interesting and the art was beautiful. It's sort of, I don't know what was missing for me, but just not the sort of thing I was invested in. I think part of it is that I don't want to read pandemic fiction. Like, brain again. Like, a part to me about this the other day while I was reading this, that I get this feeling sometimes when I read a book where there is a major disease-fueled catastrophe, where I check especially if I do know that it's not an older book where I read it and I just go, oh yeah, I think this was published in 2021, might have been 2020, but either way, it's just like, right, yeah. I see why this was made. I see what this is in response to. And I did find it fascinating. Maybe if Volume 2 shows up at the library, I might give it a go. Just to. Because, it was interesting. But I think Volume 1 might be enough for me. Because I just. When I'm reading at the minute, I don't necessarily want to be reminded that we are living through the plague again, About living through the plague again, as if I'm hundreds upon hundreds of years old and I lived through the first one. But the point I'm making is that the human race is living through another plague, and I don't necessarily want to be reminded of that when I'm reading. And I'm aware that I read Tender as the Flesh and Where the World Turns Wild, both of those being books that are that do reference disease spreading wildly, especially in Where the World Turns Wild. There is a lot of that, people being isolated off because of the disease and all that sort of thing. But because there was so much more to that, not anything towards any of the writers here, it's a shorter form, like, rather, this graphic novel was maybe 100 pages ish, whereas you're gonna double, triple that for Where the World Turns Wild. So you're gonna have more content in one than the other, and it feels like the pure focus of this is on the disease itself, which is fine. It's just not something I want to be thinking about right now. If you do think it's worth checking out, like if you do like reading stuff that is in response to current events type way, that's not necessarily because it's not like a COVID adjacent type of disease. It's a fainting sickness, and it's very like, it is magic horror type stuff, what you probably expect from Stephen King. I wouldn't know. This is the first Stephen King piece of media that I've read. But point is, a bit of magic horror is not exactly a surprise from everything that I know of what he writes, especially the horror aspect, obviously. But again, the idea of this sleeping sickness taking hold, it's not an exact adjacent to COVID, but I was reading it and there were times I'm like, oh no, I don't want to be thinking about pandemic again, especially given the UK has just decided that COVID doesn't exist anymore. And I'm really looking forward to living in a world where COVID doesn't exist anymore, but I don't like living in the world where we just pretend it doesn't. I'm so excited. I love my life. Next up, we have Frankenstein, a Junji Ito short story collection. Christ, sorry, I just got a bit too real for myself there. Yeah, so when I first picked this book up, I actually didn't realise it was a short story collection. It has in the little top corner that it is a collection, rather than just, I thought it was like a big adaptation of Frankenstein. It's not. It's got some other short stories in there as well, and they're all wonderful. I have always meant to read Junji Ito, but I am a coward. I don't read a lot of horror stuff at all, especially not body horror type stuff, because as it's supposed to do, that freaks me out. I like a lot of psychological stuff. I don't like gory. It's sort of weird because I don't even know if gory is the right word, but I guess it is. I don't like, body horror. It's not, or it's effective, obviously, and what I will say is this: I was really glad for the little stories that are I was really glad for I'll get it this time. I was really glad for the 2 short stories at the end that were a memorial for his little dog, and I thought they were a nice little bit of relief. because Lord knows I was suffering throughout that, exactly as I should have been. And I really like the Frankenstein adaptation itself was really good. From like I've not read Frankenstein in a lot of years, so it's the sort of thing where I know the story well enough. Also, because I've got a friend who bloody loves it, therefore you tend to pick up on that sort of thing. But it's not one of those stories that's in my sort of. I could tell you exactly how it goes throughout. From what I could tell, it was even if it wasn't necessarily a beat for beat adaptation, it was an enjoyable adaptation, if that makes sense. But I think I preferred the sort of through line of the multiverse stories that go. Apparently, I'm not with it today. My mouth does not want to work the way my brain wants it to work. Love this for me. But yeah, there are multiverse stories that go on throughout the collection, and the way they interconnect. Because at first I thought, oh, is that the same person or is it just a similar style? And I am really quite name blind. As in, like, this is not just a case of names that are sort of foreign to me. It is any kind of book. A lot of the times, unless I see a character over and over again, I will forget the names. Like I have mentioned this podcast before, the Magnus Archives. In that, names are all really important, but I will forget them really easily. And this can happen if I'm listening to like that podcast, if I'm listening to multiple episodes in a row. So even though the name was repeated in this Junji Ito collection, at first I didn't quite pick up on that because I can't remember names at all. They fall out of my head with ease. And I don't know why, but it is what it is. However, as soon as I realised, oh no, they are the same person, I think it was when the words multiverse were used, and I was like, oh no, they definitely are the same. I was really glad that I wasn't losing my marbles a little bit. And I just thought the way they all fit together was really nice. There's a particular moment where this character and a bunch of his friends are walking around and they see a moment from a previous story, and the way that all fit together, absolutely just a nice little click together, nice little moment. It just fits and it was nice. I also found throughout that there's this feeling sometimes when you're reading where you're like, oh yeah, this is like a spooky, creepy story, and then you'll turn a page and it's like, oh yeah, this is Junji Ito. There's just these moments where you're like, oh, that's visceral and awful, and I can feel my skin. I want to peel my skin off. I feel oh, nasty. It's awful, but in the best possible way. Obviously, giving the reaction that it should do. If you are up to reading this sort of thing, because I understand why a lot of people wouldn't be, I do think that his work is, I mean, it takes me to say, oh yeah, I really do think you should read Junji Ito, as if he's not one of the most renowned like writers and artists out there. But what I'm saying is, if you just feel like, oh, but it might make me a bit uncomfortable, a bit uneasy, I say, give it a go. I am a coward. I think I can just leave that there. But I read this book and I enjoyed it. Even if I do, even if I am still going to be thinking about specifically that little awful doll for a bit longer than I kind of like, I still think, absolutely give it a go. Give it a try. What have you got to lose? Finally, we have Bubble. I really enjoyed this. I need to find out if there's more. Also, I'm going to be listening to the podcast this is based on because it was so much fun. It's it's apparently, like, the original podcast is apparently run by the same people as the Adventure Zone, because apparently the McElroys are in every aspect of my life now, even though I don't absorb their content. But from what I know of the Adventure Zone, if you enjoy that, then you will probably enjoy this. I think I will be enjoying that podcast, finding out if there are more graphic novels from, like, based on that on the way, because I thought it was so funny, and like it was just it was silly and ridiculous, and it was just a lot of fun, and that's generally what I go for with any sort of graphic novel type media, like manga, comic books, anything like that. I mean, obviously I'm aware I've just talked about Junji Ito, and not exactly, you know, all fun and games types stuff. I have a bit of wobbling there. Apologies for that. Stop. Where was I? Yeah, I'm aware I've just spoken about Junji Ito, but I do generally think fun and humour is where I go towards with graphic novel and adjacent content. Sometimes I'll go for a bit spooky, you know, but usually it's the kind of spooky that's like, I don't know how to explain it, like Hex Girls type spooky, not like generally not like Junji Ito is not where I go to gravitate towards. I go for camp spooky, generally. Yeah, that's probably the right. I like camp. Who'd have thought? I mean, my brain has fallen out once again. I really like the concept of Bubble with this kind of gig economy type, like gig economy type commentary, while working with this like fantasy aspects and that kind of thing. I thought that was really fun, and I really hope there's more. I really do. I want my own version of this. I think of all of them, this and Junji Ito, I dread to think how many times I've said his name already. Those are the two that I want to read. I want to A, own my own copy of, and B, read more of. Why is my brain falling out so much today? I just think they were the ones that hooked me in the most, and I'm really glad that I read this after being absolutely horrified, because it was a bit of a pick-me-up as well. I just thought it was great fun. I'm trying to think of something to compare it to, but I can't at the minute. Maybe because there is a vibe to it, but the only thing I can currently think of is when Drawfee, the art YouTube channel, did like a role-playing game thing, a role-playing game series surround, like, using art, but it was this kind of thing of like playing off gig economy type stuff, haunting monsters, and that's what that reminded me of. But I think there's something else, and it's just not tapping in. But for what it's worth, I think that you should I definitely think it's worth you going out and finding a copy of this, because it's just a lot of fun. And also the McElroys are in it. I think because, you know, they're under the same company, there's just a lot of ribbing of the McElroys at one point, and they turn into strange monsters, and I think that was a lot of fun. Sorry if this was a bit different and a bit rambly. I did no scripting this week. I have no idea how this has gone, if I'm going to end up refilming it, because it felt rambly, it felt strange, but I'm probably just going to go bugger it and edit it up and put it up anyway. As you'll see on Tuesday, we had something a little bit different. We had the 6 of the best wrap up. Coming soon is gonna be that essay. I'm gonna try and get it out on the first Tuesday of March. I've now said that, so hopefully that'll give me a bit of a kick up the backside to try and get it done. I will be finishing my research soon. I'm starting my script. That should be Thursday. I'm going to be starting my script on that. Because I've nearly got to where I need to be with it in terms of research. And then it's just scripting and drafting and filming and editing and all that good stuff. I've also started filming something else. I was originally going to do that like 6 of the best, where I was going to reveal everything, and then throughout the weeks I was going to be reading that alongside other stuff. I'm still going to be reading it alongside other stuff, but I'm going to put one larger video up about that. Don't know when that'll be up, whenever I finish those books. But I hope you've all had a lovely, lovely day. I hope you do have a lovely, lovely day. I don't know when you're going to be watching this. I will see you soon. Probably next Thursday. I don't have anything planned for next Tuesday. So, I'll see you very soon. Take care of yourselves. Right.